Okay, so the purpose of this video is to show you how to extract the normal map out of Mudbox, or to use 3D Studio Max to render high poly detail onto low poly assets. So we can start in Mudbox. So let's imagine this is your character, this is your finished sculpt. So you've got all the details in there, like pores in the skin and wrinkles and all that kind of thing. What you need to do is make sure that your character is unwrapped, which I believe this one is, otherwise we're going to not be able to do anything with it. Let me just check. Yeah, okay, fine. So make sure your character is unwrapped. If you're using the base head in Mudbox, then it is already unwrapped, you don't need to worry about it. Okay, so from here we go up to UVs and maps at the top, and then we come down to extract texture maps here, and then you won't see this in my operation. You just click on new operation, give it a name, so let's call it normal map extraction, and then the maps that you want it to generate obviously is a normal map. So in here what you're looking for is to add in the target model. So if you just click on add all, then it brings in the eyes, the eye and the head. Actually only interested in the head, so I'm just going to select the two eyes and remove them. The eyes are just spheres, we can do those later. So the head at level 0, this is now where you need to look at your head model, page it down to its lowest level and see whether 0 is too far or not. So if I just page down here with this guy, he's on 6. So keep going down. So I'm looking for like major changes in silhouette, and if there isn't, which there doesn't seem to be, there's a big chunk. So that's quite a big difference in the silhouette there. You can see it on his shoulders, around his neck, his ears. So I would kick out level 1 for this guy's head, which means we're kicking out a 3400 poly head. Okay, so that's just so you know which level to kick out. So I'm going to push him back up to level 6 again. And then go back into that. Right, 7's the highest. Okay, so extract maps. Let's go back to my normal extraction, normal map. Okay, so I know that level 0 is not what I want level 1. So all I do is I click where it says the level, and I change it to say this is the lowest level. That's what I want it to kick out to. Source model, again, we can add all, get rid of the eyes. Level 7, we want the highest possible detail to come through into that level 1. Scroll down. Method is going to be ray casting, so it casts out little rays and finds out what's furthest away from your initial model, the low poly one and the high poly one, and then it finds the details in between. It gives you an explanation of each of them if you just hover over this choose samples area here. Search distance, just click on best guess, let the computer do that for you. There's no point in you trying to guess that for yourself. Image properties, you choose whether you want to kick out one map or a map for each different target. We just want one, so we're just going to have a single head unwrap. Image size, go a bit bigger than you would need to, so you can go to 4096 here or 2048, depending on which version of character you're doing. I'm going to go 4096 and then scale it down later when I'm happy. Anti-aliasing I normally put on 2, and then final here you've got normal map output compatibility. We want to change it to 3D Studio Max, and then we'll keep it on tangent space because it could be an asset that you're going to animate, so we'll leave it on tangent. Output options, we want a texture, then we give it a file name, so I'm just going to go and stick it where I've been saving everything. We'll put him in here. Batman normal, and then you click extract. Okay, well, let's go with what it just said there. I'm just going to pause the video whilst it's extracting. It takes a while. Okay, so that's kicked out those normal maps. I'm going to go and check and see what they look like. I'm going to go desktop, download. Okay, here's the Marv normal map. So I can. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, Fatman normal map. So there he is there. That's with object space, I believe. So I did it twice. I did once with object space and once with tangent. So that's object. So I'm going to leave that one to the side and then redo it again with another file name. Call it tangent space, and we can see which one looks better when we drop it into 3D Studio Max. So I'm going to go back through, extract action map, normal. These are all exactly the same, and then here I'm going to redo these, put them back. So I changed my method to subdivision and the map to the coordinate space to object. So I'm going to change that back to tangent and extract again, and I'll pause just for a second. Okay, so both of the maps have exported now. So I've got one that's object space, which looks like this, and then I've got one that's tangent space that looks like that. Okay, so we can drop both of these into Max and see which one feels right or looks better. Object space generally is used for objects that don't move. So something in a scene that isn't going to animate so much, you'd use an object space. Something that's more static. Something that is going to move a bit more, you would use the standard traditional tangent space. So that's this one here. Okay, so we can now open up Mudbox again. I'm just going to hide these paint layers, they're not necessary. That one. Okay. And then all we need to do with Mudbox now is kick out the lowest version. We want the lowest of version 1. I think we went down to. So if I just page down until I get to level 1, that's my lowest version of the character that I want to go to. So I'm going to select the head, come over to File, come down to Export Selection. So I'll export the piece that you got selected. Go to desktop or wherever you're saving yours to. So I'm saving mine in this download folder. Batman _low and hit save. Okay, so if I now open up 3ds Max, we'll be able to see what this looks like with the different maps on. I'm going to come and show you this separate way of using 3D Studio Max to take those details out as well, but I'll come back to that in a second. So let's go to open new. I'm going to import file, import the Fatman low poly head. There he is. And then I'm going to go into my material editor, and we will bring in a standard map, followed by, we'll go into the bump map here, pulling across to the left, general, normal map, and then in the normal map we want to add a bitmap. And the bitmap is the image that we saved, one of the extractions that we saved. So we'll see how they look. So the first one I'll use is tangent. Open that. Make sure your 3D Studio Max is set to high quality, so that you can actually see the normal maps when you put them on. And then we've got to apply this map to the character. Make sure it's visible in the viewport. And then in our maps section down here, we've got bump map here, and we can turn that up so that we can see more of the bump inside 3ds Max. See that you can see these lines coming across. Sometimes that means that we don't need this middle section. You can just go from map straight to bump. So we'll try that. There we go. So this one's unnecessary. I can delete it. And my scale's a bit too high. So there you can see we've added those normal details have started popping through from the original. So if I take, let's have a look at that as an object space now as well. I'll show you what that looks like. And then we can scale that up again. So they both do a very similar job. They're both bringing through the pores. But the reason why I'm showing you this way and the 3ds Max way is I think the 3ds Max way works better. So that's how you do it with Mudbox. Okay. Moving on. I'm going to open up a new file. And in this one, basically what's happened is I've exported from Mudbox. So let me just jump back to that for a second. I've exported the highest level. So I made sure my levels up here went all the way up to the highest level. Then, with the head still selected, I came up to export selection, and it exported the head at the highest possible level. Import that into 3D Studio Max. So in case of doing this, here we're going to switch characters here, but here's the high poly version of that character. He's actually the he's Marv from Home Alone, that one of my second year foundation degree guys has worked on. Okay, so here he is in 3D Studio Max, but he's in at full high res. So you're looking at, let's have a look, 8.3 million polys sat there at the moment. So then what we need to do, it's a little bit cumbersome, just this one piece in Max. So you can't, for some reason in 3D Studio Max, just go file, import and have another lower poly just drop in the scene. It tends to replace the one that's already there. So you need to go import and merge, but you can only merge 3D Studio Max scenes. So to do it, you just save this scene, save as high poly Marv, which I've already done here. So I'll just resave it. Then open up a new scene, import the low poly version of the character, and then go file, import, merge the high poly version. Okay, and then we've got them both in the scene at the same time. Let me finish for that. So finish saving. Okay, so then we go file, new, all new, and then I'm going to import the low poly version of the character. Then I can go to file, import and merge the high poly version of the character. We are testing 3D Studio Max, or my computer actually, quite a lot, having all of these software programs open. Okay, so here we go. So we've got the high and the low poly sat right next to each other. Okay, or right on top of each other, I should say. If they come in and they're not bang on top of each other, which they shouldn't, because you guys have used Mudbox in order to kick out the low and the high anyway, and they should be in the same place. If they're not, just use the align tool up here. So have one of your assets selected, select the align tool, click on the one that you want to align it to, and then here you just tell it that you want it to align the pivots to the pivots, so which should be in the same place if you've used the same software to model the head. Click apply and OK, and they're now bang on top of each other. Ideally name each of them. So this one is the Marv high poly version, and then I should have a low poly version in there as well, which is probably this one. Low. Okay, I'm just going to check whether I've got the right around. Yeah, that's the low one. Okay, next we come up to rendering, down to render to texture, and in here again we need to make sure that firstly our low poly is unwrapped, so let me just check that first. Doesn't look like he is. No. Okay. I'm going to very quickly unwrap this character. In fact, I'll do it live on this video because it's to help you with unwrapping again. So I'm just going to isolate low poly Marv. So this is how the unwrap looks on him in a minute, which is completely wrong. Okay, so quickly unwrapping this guy. I'm putting this wireframe on. I'm just going to come straight down to unwrap, which I already have here. I'm going to turn off the green seams because they're unnecessary. So this is under configure, you've got display. I'm going to turn those seams off there. I'm going to make sure the peel seams are still turned on. Then we're going to come up the stack a little bit and find this point-to-point system here under peel. That one there, and then I'm just going to tally off where his neck is. So I'm going to use this line here. Just going to slice his neck all the way around. Okay, so that separates bottom half to the top. I'm going to put a slice straight down the back, and then I'm going to put another one straight at the top of the head, all the way down to where his hairline roughly is, and then come across. Oops. Max trying to find the quickest way of getting there. And again on the other side. That's probably right. You'd ideally want to take ears off as well. It's going to be difficult to find where they go here. I'm going to go from there. Okay, that did quite a good job. Let's do the same on the other side. Oh, I'm saving. If Max ever starts auto-saving, you don't want it to, you can hit escape to stop it from doing that. Especially if you've got something quite high poly in your scene, saving can take like a minute or so, which you don't really want. Okay, so I think that's roughly all of the loops that I want. Just going to remove that little one there, so I don't want that. Those two to split. Okay, cool. So that's where I will put the loops in for the unwrap, and then it's a case of just selecting a polygon. So we're going to choose the front one on his face here, and we're going to choose this button here, which is expand polygon selection to seams. So it's almost like the old school paint bucket, Windows Paint. So we click this, and it will find the edges. So it goes as far as where the seams are, which obviously, hopefully, should exclude your ears. Then we're going to open up the UV editor. So there's all the pieces that we need to map back together. I'm going to choose peel over here, or pelt, sorry. Start pelt, stop pelt, commit it, and then I'm going to choose this little peel mode button in the middle here of this peel section, and that should give us quite a nice looking unwrap for the head. Just move it, sorry, hold on. So there's our head unwrapped. And then I'm just going to grab the ears and the back of the head. So I'm going to pause it whilst I do that, because it's quite simple what I'm going to do. In fact, no, I'll just leave it. You can watch. Fast forward this bit if you want. Start, stop on the ears, okay, and then that button there, and then that's that one done. There's one ear. Two ears. And then the rest of the neck. Okay. Obviously you want to check that all of these things have been unwrapped properly, so if you go to checker and you're just looking for squares, which as you can see everything is squared. Obviously the squares are smaller in the ears because they're too big, but we'll just repackage all of that. So we select all of these shapes here, come down to arrange elements section, tell them to rescale properly, so then the squares should all be the same size. Press F2 if you want to be able to see the squares without the red over the top. Just remember you've done that. And then package them in the middle, so you can either tell it to do it itself, so the button above scale will repackage for you, but then obviously you want to do a bit more work on that because this section is more important to you than this section, right? So we can select this guy, make it bigger, rotate it perhaps, make it fill as much space as possible. The other thing that you can do with peel, so if I click on peel again here, I can resize this using points. So I can grab this one here for example, and if I start moving it, hold on, make sure that's turned off. I can grab this one here. If I start moving that one, you can see I can rescale the whole head. So if you want, say, the face to be bigger when the back of the head isn't as important, then I can grab these two sections like that. I don't know how easy this is for you to see on your screen. Let me turn off that checker. So see, I'm grabbing these two edges just on the side, these two verts on the side of the head. It means it's shrinking down this back section, which I'm less interested in. Oops. I'm less interested in this section, I'm more interested in this being nice and big so we can put more detail in. Okay, so if I turn off peel, I'm just going to reposition these now. So this is the most important thing. Just get it in there, shrink it down a little bit. In fact, I just want to scale this side a little bit more. Let's put that up there, here, here, and then the bottom section can come back down here. Okay, and that's the unwrap for that head done. Okay, I can collapse that now. And then we're back where we were. So we need to go to rendering. Render the texture. That'll open up a dialog box. This dialog box here. So we'll start from the top. Output. This is where you want to save it to. So I'm going to put it back where I've been saving everything up so far. Marv. I'll save it in here. In fact, we'll do a new folder. Normal map extraction, and we'll put it in there. Okay, moving down, make sure you've got the Marv low poly selected in this section here. Come down further, you're looking for this projection mapping section just here. Max is trying to save again, you can see. I'm just going to escape that out. Remember, it's got a 8.3 or 8.4 million poly asset in the background, so it's struggling to save when it does that. So I've just hit escape to stop it. I'm going to do it. Okay. So projection mapping, we can turn that on, and then we pick the asset that we want to map to. So click on pick. It needs to be unhidden. Right click, unhide all, and then we'll go to pick, and then pick the high poly, click add, and then what it does is it looks at the low and it looks at the high, and it creates a cage that sits around the outside of the high poly one. So that's what it's doing right now. The cage will appear in blue, quite dark blue lines. Okay, there you go. So there's the cage. So if I reselect that low poly, okay, that's the high. So I reselect low polymorph. Okay, so he's got a cage running around him now. So if we go down to projection, onto cage, scroll down here, I need that. Scroll down here to find the drop down for cage. Okay, so we're in the modifier list, projection, cage, and then I'm just going to reset it because at the minute it's sticking out way too far. You can see the distance that it's looking at, and there's no way that the high poly model is that far out. We know that it's almost bang on. So click reset, and then here with your push amount, we're just going to push it up ever so slightly so that it just kicks out slightly further away from the head. There's a few little areas where the high poly is going to be sticking further than the cage, but we'll find out where they are in a second anyway. Okay, so with that done, we want to use the existing channel map 1, which is our unwrap that we've just created, and then we want to look at our output files, and in here go to add, and we want to kick out a normal map. This is where you can also kick out a ambient occlusion map as well. So you've got an Arnold AO maps are in here that you can kick out as well. So we just want normals for now, so click on add elements. Obviously 256 is way too low, so scroll down, you'll find here's your sizes. We'll go to 2048, and that should be everything. Click on render. This is just saying that it's because you can ask it to target map back into a slot in the material editor, but we can do it ourselves. It's fine. And this is saying it's missing a map. That's just a light probe. It's fine. Okay, so it's going to bake that for us now. I will come back when it's done. Okay, so here's the unwrap that it just created. You can see anywhere in these tiny little red spots are areas where the cage isn't far enough away from the head, so it's not picking up these details here that are red, and these details here is probably because they stick out a little bit. Not a problem. Most of the face is all good for us. So that's what it looks like when it kicks it out in 3ds Max, but the actual file is saved where you told it to up here. Okay, so obviously that's not a normal map, but there is one saved there. So we'll close that. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to hide my high poly, and I want just the low for a moment. I can turn off the cage, or I don't need to look at it anymore. Okay, so here's my my low poly asset, and then I'm going to go to my material editor, and I'm going to swap. In fact, I'll delete these, I'll rebring them in. So I've got a standard material in here. I'm going to go to bump map, pull across to the right, go to general, bitmap, and then I'm going to grab the normal map that I just kicked out, which was this one, I think. Oh, there, I called it new normal map, so it's in there. So it's this one here. You can open that, apply that to the character, and then you should be able to see the high poly details have all come through. Here's the area, you can see the areas where there were little red spots, so they're the areas that you need to make sure the cage was slightly bigger in order for it not to pick up those pieces. There's a few of those dotted around. But there's the high poly, oh sorry, the low poly with the high poly map on. To see what they look like side by side, I will bring the other one back in. Oh, saving again. You can turn off the autosave function. It's under the customize tools. I'll show you that in a second. In fact, I'll show you now. Cancel that. So we go to preferences, files, and auto backup here. So you can tell it that you don't want it to save every 5 minutes, or you can just extend it maybe. Just say you want it to save every 10. Get less interrupted less. Okay, so let's bring back unhide all. There's our high poly. I'm just going to give it a flat texture on as well, so we can compare a little better. Let's put that onto this guy. Okay, and then so what we have here is our so on the right you've got a 8.3 million polygon asset, and then on the left we have make sure these are showing selection. Okay, it's not showing me what poly count we've got. We'll use the polygon counter instead. It's bizarre. Okay, so selected asset. This one. So this one's on 16,000, whereas this one's on well, way more than that. Oh, it's counting triangles, I believe. So 16 million is the one on the right. 16,000 to 16 million. And that's why we use render to texture. So you can see the differences between the two. And remember that you can also drop into your material editor and increase the amount of bump if you need to in here. So we can come down, grab this bump, it's only on 30 at the minute. If we pump that to say 50, and then it adds in more of these little lines and little details can all pop through. Okay, cool.